breakfast for about a year. When Sheila from Comtuck Valley Memorial Association approached us at a past chamber breakfast and said, Mass Humanities is making it possible for a Smithsonian exhibit to come to Massachusetts and come around to different towns, and I'm part of a partnership that is applying for a grant to bring it to Turner's Falls in Franklin County. And that sounded great. And wouldn't it be interesting? It's all about rural America, change in rural America. And wouldn't it be interesting to feature the stories of some business owners and people who work at organizations in Franklin County to hear their stories, hear their challenges, how they cultivate community, the stories of what is this place, which is rural America. Sounded like a great idea. They got the grant, so we started really delving into what is this exhibit about, reading about it. Here's a brief description of one of the passages on the website. Many Americans assume that rural communities are endangered and hanging on by a thread, suffering from out-migration, ailing schools, and overused land. But the perception is far from true in many areas. Many rural Americans work hard to sustain their communities. Why should revitalizing the rural places left behind matter to those who remain, those who are left, and those who will come in the future? All Americans benefit from rural America's successes. We can learn great things from listening to these stories. And I love this last line. There is much more to the story of rural America. So we've seen amazing transformations here in Franklin County. Our speakers today have businesses or work for organizations in 3 of our post-industrial towns, Turner's Falls, Greenfield, and Shelburne Falls. All 3 towns have suffered loss of industry and the ripple effects that have come with that, but they've reinvented themselves. These towns have looked at economic innovation and the key assets that make them unique. Beautiful scenery, architecture, cultural traditions. These all make these places desirable and really unique. There's much more to the story of Franklin County, of rural America and Franklin County. So the Chamber is one of the state's official tourism bureaus. We're a chamber, but we're also a tourism bureau. Jesse had talked a little bit about the great grant we got to continue our work of promoting Franklin County. And last year, we embarked on a new branding effort, many of you have heard about it, to really reflect, so what is special about, what is, the narrative that we had wasn't really that accurate. So how do we really communicate what is so special about this place? We put out a big survey. We worked with a branding company, Transit Authority Figures, and we put out 350 people responded to the survey, both visitors and people who live here. So if this narrative is like these rural communities are hanging on by a thread, there's overused land, there's out-migration, really? Let's hear from the people who live here and the people from other places who visited. What do they say about this place? And I'm going to read just a few of the top things that people said. These are people who live here, who really are qualified to speak about it, and people from other places who visited. This is what they say. Beautiful, picturesque, scenic, community-friendly, welcoming, full of hidden gems, down-to-earth, earthy, gritty, creative, artistic, handcrafted, quirky, funky, weird, laid back, homey, cozy, comfortable. Sounds pretty bad, right? There is much more to the story of rural America. I'm from Turner's. I'm not from Turner's. I live in Turner's. I'm from somewhere else, but I came to Turner's. And Turner's has suffered a negative perception for years, just stuck for years. And it was really vindicating when the Boston Globe came and, well, I think all of us who have been in business meetings with people from, say, Boston, who have to come out here for a conference or a meeting, like the dreaded having to come out the Wild West, you know, they think they're gonna have to fend off wild animals or not be able to get a latte or a decent meal. That's not the reality. You know, that's one narrative that is not accurate. So then when the Boston Globe wrote this article on Turners, I'm just gonna read one quote from it because it's just awesome. Few places hold such prehistoric and progressive allure as tiny Turners Falls. Few places in New England deliver such an enormous dose of history, beauty, and pure quirkiness. That's rural America. That is rural America. Yes, there is more to the story. We heard from so many visitors who filled out these surveys, and what came up time after time was people saying, there is more here than I realized. And they cited all these things like, I didn't realize this was here, there's really more. So we adapted that as our main campaign going forward. And our new website is going to be ready by the end of February, so look for that. But our campaigns revolve around the theme of more. So we really connect to this exhibit. So today we're going to hear from 4 presenters who have all come through a pandemic. They are going to talk about a lot of the themes of this exhibit. The themes are identity, land, community, persistence, and managing change. They've all managed obstacles. They've come here from other places, and in one instance, born here and left and decided to come back. That's in-migration. Everybody here is in-migration. And they are all involved in their community. They bring people together in interesting ways. They've embraced the increasing role of downtowns as experiential centers that are so important to the surrounding communities. So before I call up Janel, our first speaker, check out your card, bookmark, look at all the really great events happening, bookmark the QR code in your phone, and you are gonna have entertainment options for the next month and a half. All right, so Janel Nockleby, who has a drink named after her at the Rendezvous, but Nockleby down. Seriously. So Janel is the lead partner in this grant. She's from the Great Falls Discovery Center, which is a state park located in a complex of beautiful old mill buildings in downtown Turners Falls. The buildings house life-size dioramas of the watershed's habitats and animals from source to sea, an information desk, an art gallery, and an event space. Their exhibits are free, fully accessible, open to the public, and she'll give an overview of the exhibit, and we are going to queue up a video. Get that ready. Janel, do you want to come up first and then we'll play the video? Okay, well thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this really tremendous program.
Hello, Video Master. I'm excited to have the Smithsonian come to Turners Falls because it's going to be a great opportunity for people to see a really high-class exhibit done by the Smithsonian here in our small little village of Turners Falls. You know, just a few thousand people don't have to travel to DC in order to see something really great. And it's going to connect people directly to their lived experience, to their lives. It's going to relate to them, the ebbs and flows of the economy and life here in Turners Falls, the ups and the downs I think people will see that reflected in the exhibit.
People have a tremendous amount of pride in this spot, and I think it comes from the fact that this has long been an attractive place, not only, of course, for the native people who lived here for 10,000 years, but as the industrial revolution and industrial age, this particular spot is in a lot of ways a kind of a hub for a lot of the area.
I think this is the most appropriate spot that the Smithsonian can come because you have all of the history here. It's almost like the epicenter of all these different historical kind of transformations that took place in the United States. They're all present here. Having the Smithsonian here is really just another way to reinforce the really good work that's being done about looking at our history in a very unvarnished way, but at the same time it's beautiful because it's more real.
It is so exciting to be here today. Thank you all for coming out. Just where to begin? We've been planning this for over a year. Whoa, and it's happening, it's real. We've got 15 crates showing up on Tuesday, on wheels, yay. And Wednesday, we're gonna get a pile of people and try to figure out how to install it all. So you know who you are in the room. It's gonna be great, right? So thank you, friends, Sarah, Lisa, everyone. Our friends group has been so instrumental in keeping our center a vibrant and lively place. We couldn't do it without you. As a free state park, we kind of have to be a little scrappy and find ways to get creative to make programs happen. So thank you, Friends Group. And because of this amazing grant from Mass Humanities, Crossroads Change in Rural America, we are able to do so much more than we could have ever imagined. And I want to just give a little shout out, because you might be in the room, to the statewide sponsors that are also making this possible in 6 communities in Massachusetts, so that's big Y. And Greenfield, same thing, thank you so much. And also Blue Cross Blue Shield. So like you mentioned, we're a free state park dedicated to the natural, cultural, and industrial history of the Connecticut River watershed. We are a hub, a crossroads for answering all sorts of questions. Everything from where's the ice cream to I found this skull in the woods, what is it? And we're here to help connect people to each other and to the river. Our habitat dioramas are the perfect introduction to New England wildlife for newcomers and old-timers alike. Being in the most rural mainland county in Massachusetts, our center is also a perfect fit for this exhibit, Crossroads Change in Rural America. The exhibit highlights how much rural America has changed since 1900. The changes have been massive, economically and demographically. In any given moment since 1900, rural Americans across the country have had to dramatically change their approach to life. Most people don't live in a rural place anymore. Yet, here we are. What are we to make of it? Crossroads offers us an opportunity and a chance to reflect. The exhibit contains modules on identity, land, community, persistence, and managing change, which evoke many questions, and these are just a few. Like, how do you even define rural? Do you feel rural? When are you considered from here? Do you own land? Fear you never will? Or do you wish there was a land acknowledgement? What memories of rural life do you cherish? What do you wish you could forget? Where do you seek community? Or is it hard to find? Do you believe in your community's ability to persist? Are the benefits of living here worth the struggle? How will we manage change, the continuous changes that challenge our economies? But you don't have to know the answers to those questions just to visit the exhibit. After your visit to Crossroads, Change in Rural America, you will have a broader sense of history and of what is possible amidst so much change. Americans come together at Crossroads. Let's come together and experience the Smithsonian's Crossroads exhibit and reflect. As Lisa mentioned, we have this amazing postcard of a ton of events. So we're bringing you this series of free public programs and local exhibits to celebrate our rural experience, consider the challenges that we face and our future. Here are a few highlights, and please know that they are described in detail also on our website, the Friends fabulous new website, greatfallsdiscoverycenter.org. So, we got a giant pair of scissors for the ribbon cutting, and they are so cool. They were out yesterday, and they're wicked sharp. So, there's that. That's on February 5th in the morning, on a Sunday morning, with refreshments brought to you by the Friends Group. And we have 3 big events at the Shea Theater, including a Crossroads kickoff with Leo Quang, a short film on maple sugaring by Steve Alms, and New England Public Media's Valley Voices team will present Franklin County storytellers. And as organizers, we don't even know what the stories are going to be yet, so this is going to be a surprise. Also at the Shea, Dr. Marge Bruchak will be presenting Recovering Indigenous Histories Along the Connecticut River on March 4th at the Shea. And then also at the Shea, Deepening the Power of Place, exploring our cultural crossroads through story, song, and spoken word. That's featuring Coleraine resident Erica Wheeler and also Andre Strong-Bearhart Gaines Jr. and his cousins. And then we're also being asked by the Mass Humanities and the Smithsonian to get together as a community and get to know our neighbors on perhaps more challenging topics. We have a program called Food for Thought. It's going to be free soup, a pub quiz, and a community conversation all on food, farms, and food insecurity. And then we're also thrilled to have exhibits by the Compass Valley Memorial Association. That's called Whose Viewpoint. That'll be in our center's hallway. We're now calling it a hallway gallery. Makes it fancy. The picture rails just went up yesterday. So cool. Also, Nina Rossi has an exhibit featuring her illustrations that have been published in the Montague Reporter. That's at the Rendezvous. And then all over downtown Turners Falls, well, I mean not all over, okay, Abbey Way, and Third Street, we're going to have historic images up about basically compare and contrast the old days and the current building will be right before your eyes, so that would be so cool. Programming also includes art at the end of March into April, our Brick House Community Resource Center Youth. It's going to be a really special, unique point of view about what it's like to live here and grow up here. And then painting workshops are coming as well. 2 programs at the Museum of our Industrial Heritage. And tomorrow we have a reception for Joe Karzik, who's from the United Arc community. Thank you.
Wow, that is quite a lineup. And I want to thank Mass Humanities and Brian Boyles. Are you here? Yes, Brian Boyles from Mass Humanities. Thank you. This is an amazing lineup, and thanks for making this possible. Next, I would like to introduce Erin MacLean from Loot Found and Made. Loot is an industrial artifact and handmade goods emporium in Turner's Falls. They find the most amazing items from defunct mills, from current businesses, but old advertising. I've learned about all the industrial history just from the things that are at Loot. And they also have handmade goods from local artists, really repurposing items that had another use in the past. She is also very involved in downtown Turner's Falls and her community and in the revitalization efforts. And has many events at her store, and thanks for being here, Erin.
Well, hi. It's so great to see all of you. Thank you for inviting me. I am a little bit embarrassed to admit that this is my first chamber breakfast, so I was entirely unprepared for being at a podium. So I'm going to kind of wing it, and I'm just going to tell you, I have some notes here, the glasses on, and just give you a little bit of the history of how I ended up in the area with my partner, John. We co-own the store Loot Found and Made on Avenue A in Turner's Falls. And in 2007, we came out to the area just to check it out. We had some friends who had helped to start the Pint in Greenfield. John was in the antique business, and he learned from his mom. Prior to that, he'd been a videographer for Cablevision out in Fitchburg, Mass. And I was working as a freelance art director for a publishing company out of New York City, where I had lived prior to coming out to the area. And we drove out to check out the area, to check out Greenfield and the surrounding area. And basically, what I like to tell people is when we drove through Turner's Falls, it was like love at first sight. The beautiful tree-lined streets, the architecture, the river running through it, the canal, the walkability, it just completely struck us as a beautiful place to live. And so, what was interesting about it when I was reflecting on it and reading about this exhibit is that we didn't set out to open a store. That wasn't on the radar. We just were looking to land somewhere and start our life together. And we saw a building on Avenue A, and the building inspired the dream to have a store. So the place inspired us. And so to me, our business wouldn't make sense in any other place. And what is our business? We find things. John drives all around, goes to factories and old mills, and he's, I would say, an archaeologist and an artist. And so with his background in finding awesome things and then identifying them, and my background in loving to organize and being a complete minimalist and wanting things to go to other homes, we put this store together. The building was a huge project. Roxanne, I'm sure you remember. If it's okay, I might say Roxanne Buda Gardner was our real estate agent at the time. Yes, it was huge. When I brought my mother out to see our new big investment, she cried. happening and meeting Lisa, knowing that the town had a commitment to arts and culture, that was important to us. The Rendezvous had craft night, and we met some of the best people over there at the Rendezvous. So there was already a community, it was happening, and we wanted to be a part of it. And also Greenfield, knowing that there was a co-op nearby, and just really loving Greenfield too. And I think that they're sister towns, we need each other. So let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, maybe a little bit of history of our building, which had been a dog grooming shop when we bought it. And then prior to that, it had been a clothing store called Allen's. It was a hat shop. It was the Cohn shop in the 50s. The Reporter newspaper was upstairs, and it was a print shop for many years as well. So what else can I say? The people in our area, it's like family. I think about so many of the people we've met over the years in the community. A lot of people who are now gone. Our friend Sandy, who lived down the street, who used to have cans that she would paint to collect the cigarette butts that people would drop on Avenue A. Our friend Ray, who was like a mystic, who wanted to remind me that when I was cutting down the thistle, that the thistle also has energy and feeling, and to be sensitive to the thistle. Audrey, who was 8 years old when she was shopping at our store, and she's now 16 and she's working at our store. So it's all those things that make it special and make it worth it, because let me be completely honest, it's not without its challenges. It's probably one of the most challenging things I've ever done. And so in terms of persistence, it takes a lot of persistence to hang in there, because we're in a town that doesn't have a lot of foot traffic. And we've seen a lot of businesses come and go over the years, really great businesses. So we're always trying to figure out how to work together to like get people to come to the party, like get people to come see what we all see and what we all love. How do we let them know we're here, and we want them to share it with us. And so yeah, over the years we've talked about like what would it be like if we were somewhere else, like a busier town. What would that accomplish? I guess we'd make more money. Money, I mean, that's just one thing in terms of how you define life. And I guess I also want to say in terms of a community and friends and family, that it does have challenges, because we don't all agree on what it should look like. We all have different ideas of what the priorities are and how to make it happen, but what's beautiful about it is that we all chose to be here, and that's what strikes me all the time. We have more in common than not, and so how we get there, just as long as we're all listening to each other and staying in conversation. We don't have to love each other all the time. And we've also had to really just diversify what we do to make it happen. You know, we have diverse streams of income, and we do the Greenfield Antique Show, we have a warehouse, and Lisa, what am I forgetting? Yeah, okay. Let me end with this. Janelle asked one of the questions, are the benefits to living here worth the struggle? Yes, absolutely 100%. So thank you. Sorry this is a little complicated.
Thank you. If you haven't visited Flute, you need to. You're going to find something really cool for your home that you never thought would work. All right, next we are going to hear from Molly Cantor. From Molly Cantor Pottery and the Handle Factory in Shelburne Falls, Molly is a potter and a teacher who's had a clay studio and gallery in Shelburne Falls for over 20 years. She's recently opened the Handle Factory, which is a studio where she teaches pottery at the Mill, which is a former Lamps and Goodnow cutlery complex in Shelburne Falls. It's being beautifully renovated and houses many artist studios and maker spaces. She offers classes for adults and children, special workshops, and studio memberships. Molly has helped to organize many Shelburne Falls events, and if you haven't seen the video that Kathy Roberts put together about all the Shelburne Falls businesses and how they have managed through the pandemic and how they come together and what's special about Shelburne Falls, you should check it out. And Molly has a bunch of great quotes in there, but check it out, it's on our website. Molly, welcome. Hi everyone. As Lisa just said, I'm Molly, and I own Molly Cantor Pottery and the Handle Factory in Shelburne Falls. I'm really glad to be here. Thanks Lisa for inviting me. I'm gonna probably mostly read because I'm a potter, not a public speaker, but I'll try to remember that you're all out there. I came here to Western Mass, and then Franklin County, and then Shelburne Falls, from growing up in the Hartford suburbs. What brought me to Shelburne Falls, when I started my business in 1996, and I had the freedom to set up shop anywhere, and I chose Shelburne Falls. What I love about Shelburne Falls are the same things that make our tiny village sort of a poster child of what's best in rural America, in my opinion. We have natural beauty, the river, a lot of the same gorgeous natural elements that Turner's has, that Erin mentioned. And the village is surrounded by forests and mountains and farms. We have a community where many of us know our neighbors, customers, and clients, and have relationships that go beyond transactional. We also manage to have practically everything a reasonable person could want or need. Just like a list of partial things that I was so delighted to find in Shelburne Falls. In addition to services such as lawyers, realtors, healthcare practitioners, we have an independent grocery and pharmacy with a soda fountain. If you've never been there, it's pretty great. A hardware store and farm and garden right outside the village, a food co-op, a yoga studio, clothing stores, hair salons, coffee shops, farmers market, pubs, restaurants, several churches, 3 banks, and a library, along with music venues and a thriving arts community, all in our little tiny village of about 2,000 people, plus all the people from the surrounding hill towns who make Shelburne Falls their hub. Despite all of this, visitors to town, I have a store, so I meet a lot of visitors to town, and it's surprising to me when they say, well, what do you do here? And I look around and say, look at all this, and we have a bowling alley. I mean, we have it all, right? So 25 years ago, I opened my first studio gallery in the village, and I found that one of the great things about doing business in a small town is affordable rent, which I've really appreciated through the years. I also found that by making and selling my work in the gallery space, I could be working on producing things during slow times, which are pretty common in the small town business, especially in the winter time. And I think that visitors seeing me working helps them understand the human connection to what they're looking at and what goes into making it. Long before I arrived, and since, the village has managed to weather change. I'm sure most of you probably know Shelburne Falls, like Turner's, like Greenfield, had primarily industry, factories, and the economy was based on that. And in Shelburne Falls, I feel like it's a really great example of a rural village that's transitioned to a new model. I'm indebted to the previous residents who had the foresight to turn elements of the village infrastructure to attractions, like the trolley bridge that served industry in the early 1900s that was transformed into the Bridge of Flowers, or the hydro dam that exposes the glacial rock formations that draw visitors down to the viewing platform. After about 10 years in business, I started longing for more connection around pottery making and decided to start teaching classes, which introduced me to a wonderful new group of would-be potters. When the classes outgrew my studio, I made use of another transformed piece of local industrial infrastructure, which Lisa mentioned. Langston and Goodnow, since 1837, had been making knives and cutlery in Shelburne Falls. So it's one of the longest operating cutlery factories, maybe the longest in the country. After they closed operations in Shelburne Falls, eccentric visionary John Maddox moved to the area from Tucson, and he renovated the entire campus of the Lansing factory. He had a tech business in Tucson, and he imagined that he was renovating this beautiful space as an incubator for tech businesses. And when I met him, I said, "Do you know where you are?" And he ended up with a factory full of artists, which is great. I just took one little tour of I wasn't planning to put a community studio there, but I took a tour and the spaces were so beautiful. The brick and the huge windows and the wooden floors, and he did such a great job there that I moved the pottery studio there and started the Handle Factory in 2018. At the Handle Factory, we offer clay classes for adults and summer programs for children and memberships for ceramic artists, and we currently serve about 50 people who are in the studio making pottery. The name, the Handle Factory, at first I thought of naming it Shelburne Falls Community Clay, which I think would be a lot easier to understand, but I liked the history of that space, and the building that we're in is where they made the handles for all the cutlery. It was called the saw room. And I liked that reference to the tradition, what was happening before, and thinking about, the new potters putting handles on their mugs and pitchers and teapots, and how that was connected. One of the beautiful things about living in a rural community is that small acts can make a big difference in people's lives. I'm really proud of how the Handle Factory has provided a safe space for people to come and be creative and find community especially during these past few years when people might have been stuck at home with their families and they had a place to go to be creative. It's enriched the lives of hundreds of people. I'm also grateful that as a business I've been supported by my local and wider community. I know it makes me happy to shop in local stores where I know the owner, and I know how it's contributing to our local economy, and I do see that it makes other people happy too when they come in and they know that they're supporting me and my business and my community through that. I've felt looked after by the Franklin County CDC, in particular Amy Shapiro, who's helped me with business planning long ago and recently ushered me through a grant process like a mother hen. And 3 of my commercial landlords at different times have asked me, would it be affordable to you if I raised the rent this year? And they, before just raising the rent. And I think that probably wouldn't happen in a larger community where, there could just be another tenant, right, waiting down the line. It's this idea of taking care of each other in the community to help us thrive. I'm sure that many of you have heard as business people that there's a cultural trend which is prioritizing experiences over things, that people are looking for more experiences. And I think the success of our community studio attests to that. I wanted to make a place for people to learn clay skills and express creativity, and it turns out that our studio tapped into a basic need that's growing in response to a sense of disconnection. And I think part of what's special about our rural communities is the opportunity to experience what connects us on a daily level, a daily basis. The natural beauty, objects made by hand, food grown down the road, knowing our neighbors. And in a small community, each of us has a role in the community, and each of us is valuable and valued. Thanks. Thank you, Molly. And I even was able to have an experience, and I don't make pottery because you used to host a Valentine's making party every year, and then COVID happened, and I stopped going, but I loved that. All right, and next is Jeremy Goldsher. I know we're running low on time, so I'm not going to read the whole thing I have written about him, but Jeremy has Greenspace CoWork, a flexible on-demand co-working space in the heart of downtown. Just the first line from their website: look at our historic third-floor view over the city common. You're constantly reminded of our local heritage as we strive toward a future of innovation, accessibility, and economic resurgence. Take it away, Jeremy.
Good morning. Good morning. I see a lot of friendly faces, and I'm used to everybody having a beer in their hand, so let's cue the rock and roll. No. I'll try to be quick. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy Goldsher, and I'm the co-owner of Greenspace CoWork. Before I begin, I want to thank my partner who cannot be here today, Jeff Salzer, who is the teller to my pen and, like the best of magic acts, has helped me turn dreams into reality. And in that, we have gained a home, a calling, and a community we love here in Greenfield. I'd also like to thank our many partners who have supported us at both the local and state level, and our current sponsors, allowing us to grow our original programming while keeping it accessible to all: the Franklin Community Co-op, Franklin First FCU, and M&T Bank. Also, my partners Max Fripp and Brianna Drowan in our ongoing Business Accelerator program, the Route to Rural Innovation Quarter. Please read about us and come to some of our sessions. And lastly, my family, who could be here today, Ben and Dr. Stephen Goldsher, and all of the staff at Hobson Reed, whose vision, compassion, and unparalleled work ethic provided me a stage on which to shine my own light. Now, what is a co-work space? This is a question I am often asked. At our core, we are a flexible, affordable, community-based workspace, serving the productivity needs of our downtown, one unique office at a time. Our spaces are 24/7, with multiple membership tiers built to be accessible to professionals of all types: grad students, video game collectives, blockchain programmers, Arabic translators, tutors, writers, artists, and mostly dads who just need to get out of the house. These are just a few types of the hundreds of members we've hosted from all over the world, some of whom, because our resources allow them to stay connected, specifically chose Greenfield as their home. I personally never wanted to call Greenfield my home. I was born here, like my father, and like many, I spent my childhood outdoors, swimming in the rivers, exploring the woods and mountains, drinking in that crisp autumn air that we call Hilltown magic. But being a quirky, creative youth, I had a hard time fitting in. I couldn't find my group. This was never more true than, my time at Greenfield Academy, where I often felt like I was stretched thin, trying to straddle two very distinct worlds. One, a literal colonial experience, complete with muskets and wigs and cotillions, and the other, unparalleled access to cutting-edge resources and globe-trotting peers. This dichotomy left me a bit untethered, dissociated from my other local peers, and I spent a lot of my nights in my dad's office on High Street, wishing I had a place in town that I could call my own. There were two distinct places, however, that I never felt alone. My Zadie always used to say, the best things in life are free, and you can probably find it in a library. Those quiet, dust-filled corners became rocket fuel for my imagination. Stories, opening new ideas and worlds far beyond the scope of our little country bubble. The second place was a gift from my grandma, who worked in museums, the Smithsonian specifically. And through the displays, it was there I learned the importance of structure, purpose, and language. The idea that stories can be more than just a gateway to new worlds, but the building blocks of community. And by preserving the historic, architectural, and aesthetic heritage of a community, museums provide a sense of place, identity, and continuity in our world. Seeking new stories after high school, I made my way out. I traveled all over the globe, trying out new experiences, being part of new communities. It became a lifelong passion to chase hidden spaces, uncovering the beauty in the forgotten. And years later, when the opportunity presented itself to come back here, I selfishly wanted to bring my acquired wisdom with me. I wanted to build the space younger Jeremy had dreamed of, where he could have the best of both worlds, and be around the kind of people that ignited his imagination. I had firsthand experience that rising prices and advancing tech were steadily pulling urbanites back towards the hills. With our idyllic New England charm, vast natural playgrounds, but easy access to highways and railways, setting root in Franklin County is an easy choice. But much that brings us back time and time again to Western Mass also isolates us, disconnecting us from the rest of the world. And this being the age of connectivity, I recognized the need for short-term offices with modern amenities and high-speed internet to serve the digital nomad, folks like me. Co-working was the perfect vehicle, and in our design you can see the entirety of my identity. The colors and rhythms of the hills I played in, the upcycled barnwood accents built by generational carpenters, the scraped-away walls exposing brick and forgotten graffiti. There's also free Blockbuster coffee and lightning-fast local internet service and a quiet space for all. For 3 years, I got to literally create a world for myself, and with all the pieces I love most of my time in Western Mass and beyond. And then COVID hit. And it was devastating, as it was for most of us. But like any good swamp Yankee, we got to work and built something new out of the pieces that had fallen around us. Now, a green space is defined as an open space that is preserved for community usage. And much like my favorite New York parks that I used to live along, they can bring people together in an environment that mirrors intention with raw beauty and serves as a platform for contact and dialogue. We've become a true community platform, building programming and opportunities that champion the local businesses around us. We create space for transparent dialogue and brainstorm solutions for a more sustainable downtown economy and infrastructure. It has been amazing to witness our community come together to keep our businesses relevant and purpose-driven, and like myself, help give Greenspace a second life. So I want to go off script here with my last minute and say, just to be clear, this is a lot of work, what we do, what we all do. It really is a mission and a calling. And as I was writing this at 2 in the morning, I was trying to think of a word to describe the kind of people who get galvanized behind these ideals, who put everything else aside to sustain these spaces for community. And the word was escaping me, and at first I thought it was a cult. But I realized that wasn't correct. It wasn't cult. That was only really half of it. The word I was looking for was cultivate. And I think the language we use when we describe our spaces is incredibly important. We often refer to our community organizations as anchors for our downtown. But when we think of an anchor, it's something that's heavy, it's immovable, it's stuck deep below the water. And a lot of what we do is rapidly evolving with the times and being flexible with the different characters that come to our communities. The best thing that we can hope to do, especially at Greenspace CoWork, is to create the space where we can cultivate the next generation, where we can get out of the way and let people set their own roots and create their own narrative. Instead of being an anchor, I hope people consider us much like the libraries and the museums that I spent my youth in, a gateway to the best of Greenfield, or if you will, a plot in which you can plant your own seeds. So I hope you come and join us at one of our events and you share your own story with us and set roots in what we're building in Greenfield. So thank you very much.